Are you hard on yourself? Why is that? And what can you do to make it better? I've been doing some research on this and thinking a lot about this. I personally am quite hard on myself, especially when it comes to my career transition, which has been slowly taking place over the last little while, and now it just feels as though it's full-fledged. And sometimes I feel stuck, and sometimes I'm struggling with whether or not that has to do with the fact that I am technically an artist now. So I've been reading all those different kinds of artist books about, going for your art and pressing through all that fear and resistance. Then I really started thinking and talking to other people as well. And I think we all go through this at a certain point. And I'm hoping that others can relate to this, whether you're at a different point in your life, whether you are transitioning, whether you're trying to achieve specific goals and you're not quite there yet. We all, I believe, at one point or another have the tendency to be really hard on ourselves. And why is that? Why do we sometimes in that moment, or many moments, not have the ability to, number one, see how far we've come, number two, appreciate everything that we have already, and number three, kind of look forward and enjoy the journey as opposed to just wanting to always be at this end place that we maybe aren't there yet. So I did some research on this, and I love the things that I found because I think it's also helping me understand myself and why I am this way. So I wouldn't say I'm overly crazy hard on myself, but I'm definitely hard on myself. And I'm definitely now understanding where that comes from. So I hope you'll be able to do the same once I share a few things with you as well. Number one, I looked into all different kinds of, psychology experts and what they're saying about this topic. And number one, it's important to note, there really is no simple answer. So why you might be hard on yourself is probably not the same reason someone else is hard on themselves. And so don't think you're gonna get one solid answer out of this. I think it does take a little bit of self-reflection, but I think you'll get many ideas and a better understanding, and then also ideas for how to combat it and use it to your advantage, most importantly, which I believe is a powerful concept. Okay, next. It's not what you might think, and it's not necessarily even often the case that those of us that are hard on ourselves suffer from low self-esteem. That is not usually the case. So usually, believe it or not, this is the part that really fascinated me. Usually it's more often a result of people that have a need for what's called affect. Now, I didn't know what this was, and I researched into it. It's quite fascinating. Affect is when you have a need for affect. That is the intensity at which people want to feel anything. So that includes excitement and happiness and positive emotions, but it also includes challenge and stress and negative emotions. So how much do you think you have a need for affect? Do you constantly live in this place where you either need something to be making you feel excited and elated way over here on this scale, or are you someone that feels like you also crave that kind of bad negative energy as well? So think about that, and then think about how that may play into your tendency to be hard on yourself. Studies have also shown that feeling bad is essential to good mental health. Let's just say that one more time. Feeling bad is essential to good mental health. Why is that? Because we need to feel comfortable in those emotions and accept the fact that we feel bad, and then move forward in different ways from there. Studies have also shown that greater psychological health is directly associated with fully accepting our emotional experiences. So that means if you do feel the jealousy or the hatred or the self-sabotage or the inner critic or the happiness, the excitement, the pride in yourself, the pride in someone else, if you accept all these emotional experiences fully, so that you're not faulting yourself for feeling one way or another, this contributes to greater psychological health on a wider scale. Finally, we're gonna get to something really important here in terms of what I researched through all these different psychologists that I took a look at. Self-criticism. This is a very real thing. All of us have a self-critic. But here's the interesting part. Your self-critic can actually be positive or it can be negative. Your self-critic can be your best friend, can also be your worst enemy. Which one is it for you? And is it sometimes different? So self-criticism can be positive, but only in healthy doses. So how much are you self-criticizing or giving yourself this constructive feedback? Is it all the time to the point that you are degrading yourself? Or is it in healthy doses, only sometimes? And here's the most important part, is it used for the purpose of developing yourself? So that's key. Your self-critic can be positive, but number one, in healthy doses, and number two, if it's used for developing yourself, not degrading yourself. Possibilities for why you may be hard on yourself. Number one, unrealistic expectations. Whatever it is that you are striving towards, do you have unrealistic or realistic expectations for what it is that you're doing? This is very, very important. And I personally can relate to this a lot. I think sometimes my expectations are unrealistic, and then I feel the disappointment, and then I get down on myself, and then I feel that I'm not doing good enough, and I'm frustrated. Setting those realistic expectations for whatever it may be. It could be a career, a relationship, a new goal that you're trying to achieve, whatever it is, be realistic. Your inner critic. So back to this. Think about that self-criticizing voice inside of you and pay attention to whether or not this voice sounds like anyone in your life. Could this be coming back to something you experienced in your childhood? Is it also associated with unrealistic standards that you have for yourself? And also this harsh self-criticism that you have created because you're comparing to maybe unrealistic things in the world around you. Be careful of this and be aware of it. So what is that inner critic? Who is it? And is there something that could be stemming to bad past experiences that you may have had in your life? Particularly think about your childhood. So be honest, how were you raised? I deal with a lot of different clients and I've ghostwritten books of people who are struggling with trauma. And it is a very real thing that I am learning that, the way that you were raised as a kid, especially if you struggled in certain areas, this can really contribute to negative emotions and negative mental health in your later life. You need to come to terms with perhaps what your childhood was like, the things that held you back, the things that pushed you forward, the way that you felt on a regular basis. So were you constantly challenged for your achievements? Were you put down and never thought to be good enough? Were you raised up and did you have that mentality of I can do anything because my parents and my support network told me so? Think about that and think about how your inner critic relates to all those things. And once again, that inner critic can be your best friend or your worst enemy. You have the control to make it your best friend or your worst enemy. And we're going to get more into that in a second. Goals. Are you setting realistic goals or goals that are impossible to meet? And I'm going to use myself as an example. So I'm writing books, I'm an author now and doing speaking engagements and really trying to transition my career in this direction. I'm still writing for my writing business and helping clients write content, but I have been moving more in this direction. And it's scary and exciting and challenging and rewarding and all of it. One thing I'm trying to do is set realistic goals. For me to say that I want to match the income of my old business immediately just because I've decided to transition over here, or rather forced to transition as a result of ChatGPT, this wonderful robot, which I use in many ways too. But I will be honest with you, the days of getting tons of freelance writing projects, especially for smaller scale projects, are over. It's not happening as much. It's happening with clients that really value quality that they know can only be produced by a human being. And it is also for larger scale projects. So I am still ghostwriting books for clients and working in that regard. But the days of I need a blog post here or this there, or the people that really want the volume and not really the quality is so much of a concern, those days are done. ChatGPT can write your article for you. All right, that was a tangent. Back to what I was saying. Setting realistic goals. I want to write lots of books. I want to plan lots of workshops. I want to do lots of different speaking engagements, but what's realistic? So my next project and my next book, I try to say to myself, realistically, when could I finish this book by? And then breaking down that goal into smaller pieces. So I need to write 1,000 words for every single day this week and every single day next week and so forth. Or in the case of my children's books, it's I need to illustrate a full spread every week and then my book will be complete by such and such a date. And I have learned over time what is realistic. And by realistic, that doesn't mean you can't challenge yourself. You should want to challenge yourself, most definitely in this regard. So think of goals that are realistic, but that also challenge you and push yourself. Perfectionism. Do you fall under this umbrella? I know I definitely do. I come from a background of very competitive sport on an international scale. And I remember those days of wanting to walk out on that carpet. Rhythmic gymnastics was my sport. Walking out and saying to myself, I have to have a perfect routine. I want to make it to finals, or I want to make it to nationals, or I want to win. Perfectionism is definitely a thing. A lot of us have it. Be careful and be aware. So it can affect your mental and physical health. It's okay to strive to be wonderful and to be great, but just be aware of the fact that over perfectionism can lead to eating disorders, bodily image issues, anxiety. We have to be aware of all of these things. Let's get into the exciting part now. Moving forward. Number one, understanding why you might be hard on yourself is important. So I know for me, striving towards perfectionism is a part of it. Also for me, realistic expectations is a big one, especially in the big picture. So I think I'm better at saying I'm going to finish this book by this date and moving forward that way. But thinking about the monetary aspect is hard for me, and I feel that I should be further along than I am. So setting those realistic goals and expectations is going to be a big part of me trying to do better in this area moving forward as well. Stop the negative talk. Every time your mind goes in a particular direction that is negative, try to focus and practice on honing your mind back in to something positive. So training your mind not to go in this direction and stay there. It's okay that it goes there. What I'm learning more about all the research I'm doing in this area too is that it's okay to let your mind go there, to recognize that it goes there, but then training it and pulling it back into something positive. And an easy way to do that is number one, focus on gratitude first and foremost. What are you grateful for in your life? What do you already have that is wonderful and that you're proud of and that maybe you were a source of accomplishing? Remembering how far you've come. I'm super bad at this one too. I've already written 3 books. I'm already working on books 4 and 5 and 6. So knowing how far I've come, knowing how many sales that I've made, even though it's nowhere close to where I want to be, knowing that I've gone and done incredible talks and workshops at schools and other settings, and feeling the engagement of that and getting through to kids and having that positive impact, these are all positive steps that I tend to forget when I focus only on, where I see myself in another 10 years. So bit by bit, day by day, how far have you come? What have you done recently that you're proud of and that you love? What have you learned? What have you already achieved in this bigger picture goal that you're trying to do? Create new, reasonable, and challenging goals. Again, reasonable and challenging. Then think about how good it's going to feel when you achieve it, and that will just propel you further forward as well. Finally, be your own best friend, not your worst enemy. It's your choice and you can go in either direction, and it's important to go on the direction of being your best friend. Why would you, there's enough enemies in this world, there's enough people that are maybe negative energies. So if you want to be your own best friend, you make that decision now. Calm that inner critic and use that inner critic to your advantage. Again, personal development, not personal degradation. Give yourself credit where it's due. Celebrate those little wins to get that happy vibe. Someone in my life reminded me of this recently and said that this is what they try to do in their everyday life. Every time they get a small sale, they go, yes, fist pump. Every time I get a sale now, one of my books, I do that too. And I just, little happy dance, yay. celebrate those things. Every time someone shows interest in one of the things that I'm doing, or gives me a positive message, or reaches out for some other possible gig, yes, it's all positive steps forward. You can battle being too hard on yourself, and you can get through this, and we can all learn to be our own best friends and not our own worst enemies. I've got another video for you to watch coming up, so I will see you there, and watch that next screen, click on that video, and I'll see you there.